Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be covering some weird stuff that's been going on lately. We talked about this a bit in the, I think it was the most recent live stream that we did. There's been all these, like, things going on where governments have been changing, okay? Or potential governments have been changing. We were talking about this when we were talking about the former Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, who was campaigning and then he was assassinated. We've talked about, and we're going to talk about them again. We're going to talk about Japan. We're going to talk about Israel and the United Kingdom. And now, thanks to Jonathan Hayes, I didn't know about this. He sent me an email where apparently the government of Sri Lanka has been overturned. When I say government, I'm saying that in a just kind of a more ambiguous way. I don't know all the details or how all these different governments work, so it may just be the prime minister or whatever. And I'm not a political analyst or geopolitical analyst, so I'm not going to be able to give the best coverage or opinion about this. But I think that at the very least, I can bring some things to your attention. So let's talk about Sri Lanka. Here we have pictures of ordinary citizens that have gone inside the presidential palace. Okay, I guess they were upset at how the not as well. Yeah, it says right here, presidential palace. So they weren't happy about how government leaders were living. Here's a pool. They're having a pool party. Looks like they're having a pretty good time. Okay, so where is Sri Lanka? If you don't know, okay, let's just zoom out. So here's the United States, South America, Europe, Africa. You come over here to India. Hopefully you're at least familiar with those locations. If you go to the tip of India, there's an island off to the southeastern coast of India, and it's Sri Lanka. Okay, this is the excuse me, this is the country in question where this is happening. Colombo, the capital, is on the west coast, the southwest coast of the country. So, okay, inside the presidential palace, now full of Sri Lankans. This happened, it says, Saturday's dramatic events forced President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to flee. So this was just a few days ago. Can't remember if I highlighted anything else. At the bottom here, it says, Sri Lankans feel their months-long protest finally has led to the removal of their country's leaders. Okay, so here it's plural, country's leaders, who they blame for the economic meltdown. A glimpse of the lifestyle of their leaders make them even angrier. So that's why they're doing all the enjoying their time at these government residences. Okay, again, my point here is not to make any sort of necessarily political point. I'm just pointing out what seems to be a common thread between these four different stories that we're covering. Again, not necessarily trying to make a political point or even pretend to truly understand what's happening here or if these are even related. I'll let you be the judge of that. But let's look a little bit at this. Let's see, His Excellency Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Okay, so let's see what we can learn about him. He is the most recent president, and now he's out. I highlighted some things on the Wikipedia page. Again, I'm not doing deep research into this, but let's just see a little bit about him. So, there was an assassination attempt already on his life on the 1st of December 2006 at approximately 10:35. An assassin attempted to drive an explosive-laden auto rickshaw into Rajapaksa's motorcade as it traveled through Colombo. The Sri Lanka Army commandos guarding him obstructed the vehicle carrying the explosives before it reached Rajapaksa's vehicle, and 2 commandos were instantly killed. Rajapaksa escaped unhurt. Okay, so there was already an attempt on his life. Okay, his criticism of the United Nations and Western countries. In June 2007, Rajapaksa was severely critical of the United Nations and of Western governments. He accused the UN of having been infiltrated by terrorists for 30 years or so, quote unquote. And as a result, the UN was fed incorrect information. He also alleged that Britain and the European Union were bullying Sri Lanka and concluded that Sri Lanka, quote unquote, does not need them, and that they don't provide any significant amount of aid to the country. Okay, so we're starting to see a picture here. Somebody wanted him out of the picture. He's been critical of the UN, Western nations, Britain, the European Union. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not giving an opinion of what I think about this person. I don't really know. I only learned that he existed today, so I know virtually nothing about him, but we're just looking at a few interesting things. COVID-19 pandemic, Rajapaksa at first refused to lock down the country. Okay, at first, he refused to lock down the country, but later decided to impose a curfew when a number of cases began to rise. Okay, so that's interesting. Environmental policy and deforestation. The Sri Lankan government under President Gotabaya transferred the administration of non-protected forest, known as other state forests or OSFs, to regional authorities in a controversial circular with a view of releasing them for agriculture and development. Okay, so these OSFs, releasing them for development. The move was claimed to be part of government efforts to boost domestic food production, but has been criticized by environmental activists as government-backed deforestation and implied permission granting for unregulated logging concessions in high biodiversity areas. Okay, so you're getting a sense maybe of his political leanings, where he would fall on the spectrum. Okay. Excuse me. Economic crisis and protest. Rajapaksa administration introduced massive tax cuts in late 2019. Okay. All right, and that's going to be it for him. So that gives you just a little taste of who he is and maybe his beliefs and his quote-unquote controversies. Okay. Interesting. Here he is. Here's his picture. Okay. He has just been driven out of office. Okay, so Sri Lanka, Rajapaksa. Okay, now we're going to go back and talk a little bit about Shinzo Abe. Who was he? Let's take a look at now. He was the former prime minister of Japan, and then he was back on the campaign trail, I guess, to get back into office. Up until now, he actually, out of all prime ministers, he was the longest in office. So this would have made it even longer if he had gotten in. So let's take a look at him and maybe some of his beliefs and who he is. This is by the Wall Street Journal opinion. Shinzo Abe invented the Indo-Pacific, the quote-unquote Indo-Pacific, meaning the term. And I don't have a subscription here, but you can just see the first little part here, which is all that we need to see. President Trump visited Asia in November 2017 in Vietnam, so that was his first year in office. In Vietnam, he delivered a speech declaring a quote-unquote free and open Indo-Pacific. It signified a shift in language leaders used to describe the world's most populous region. Mr. Trump actually borrowed the phrase from Shinzo Abe's Japan's longest-serving post-war leader. Okay, so Trump borrowed that term from him, and I feel that's, an indication that they probably shared the same view. We already talked about in the live stream how Trump did like him. There's some more. There's some more. Okay, so suspect in Abe shooting held a grudge. Scrutiny falls on a church. Okay, now this is new news. Okay, since we last spoke, this is new. The Unification Church, with links to conservative political parties worldwide, said Monday that the mother of the man charged in Shinzo Abe's death was a member. Okay, so this guy's mom was a member of the Unification Church, and he is the one that shot Abe. Okay, now look. Okay, Tokyo. When Tetsuya Yamagami, that's this guy's name, was arrested for the assassination of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan, he told police he had a quote-unquote a grudge against a quote-unquote certain group. But the authorities haven't identified the organization or explained its connection to Mr. Abe. Scrutiny, amid a swirl of Japanese media speculation, is now focused on the Unification Church, the Christian group known for its mass weddings and efforts to cultivate relationships with conservative political parties worldwide. At a news conference on Monday, church officials detailed the organization's ties to Mr. Yamagami's mom, describing her as a longtime member. She had joined the church in 1998, but lost touch with the group for a long period before returning earlier this year. Tomohiro Tanaka, the head of the church's Japan branch, said. The church, which did not specifically identify itself as the group cited by the police, said it has no records indicating that Mr. Yamagami had ever been a member and was not aware of any threats directed by him at its members. The church also said it had no direct relationship with Mr. Abe, although it had interacted with other lawmakers through an affiliate organization. Okay, so his mom was a member. She kind of fell away for a while, but within I think it said the last year she came back, but he himself is not a member, at least not on the records of the church. Okay, so there's more. The police have revealed few details about Mr. Yamagami, 41, who has been charged with murder. Mr. Abe was shot from behind with a homemade gun in Nara on Friday while delivering a speech for a candidate 2 days before a parliamentary election. Okay, so this is new. I thought that he was like campaigning for himself. So it says here it was a speech for a candidate 2 days before a parliamentary election. Okay. Mourners gathered one day after Mr. Abe's Liberal Democratic Party swept to victory in elections for the upper house of Parliament. On Monday afternoon, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida praised Mr. Abe's leadership and pledged that the newly empowered LDP would work to realize his long-held goals, including revising the country's pacifist constitution. Yeah, and that was one of the big controversies of his presidency or his time in office, is that he wanted to kind of get away a little bit from what was in the constitution of the country, because after World War II, Japan was supposed to be a pacifist country. They could have a military, but just for self-defense. But he wanted to be able to join in with allies if allies needed help, to be able to provide them with support. Okay. A little bit more. The church established its branch in Japan in the late 1950s, and it soon found common cause with right-wing Japanese politicians, including Mr. Abe's grandfather, Nobusuke Kishi, over their shared animosity for communism. In 2021, Mr. Abe and other politicians from several countries, including the United States, addressed a gathering in South Korea run by a Unification Church affiliated group. Speaking by video feed, Mr. Abe praised the group for its focus and emphasis on family values. So that's what he said about the Unification Church. He praised their focus and emphasis on family values. News reports of Mr. Abe's connection to the 2021 event drew criticism in Japan from the country's Communist Party and other groups, including a lawyers' association that has mounted a decades-long campaign against the Unification Church's activities in Japan. So the communists in Japan do not like them. The Unification Church does not like the communists. Mr. Abe has spoken kindly and in favor of the Unification Church, at least in terms of shared values, right, when it comes to family. So, okay, so you have to think about this. If there is any sort of connection between these different events, Sri Lanka, Japan, Israel, Britain, some of it may be to actually influence the government, change the government. Some of it could be symbolic as like a warning, or kind of like you can't stop us, or here's someone that was really on your side. We're going to take them out, as like a symbolic gesture. I don't know, but that's one way to possibly think about this. Okay, it says here, his connections to the Unification Church were probably very weak, quote unquote, Mr. Sakurai said, describing Mr. Abe's remarks to the group as, quote unquote, ordinary work for politicians who wanted to collect votes. Okay, so not that he necessarily had any special connection to them, just, hey, here's a group of people here's a church that kind of would favor me as prime minister and my party, so yeah, well, let's have a relationship. The church was just one of many religious organizations with right-wing political beliefs that Mr. Abe and his fellow conservatives in the LDP have counted on for political support, said Levi McLaughlin, an associate professor at North Carolina State University, who studies the connection between politics and religion in Japan. Okay, so you have that. And by the way, this church, with this whole thing, this whole story, I don't know if this is just kind of like some kind of thing to kind of get you distracted of what's actually going on. I don't know. This church, I've known about them for a while. I'm sure that you've seen it before. These are the ones that, just like this picture right here, they have these mass weddings. Now, from what I've read, this isn't necessarily for all of them an actual wedding. It's more of like an affirmation type ceremony. But they do these mass things right here. Let me just read a little bit about that. This may be kind of tangential. But okay, the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification, widely known as the Unification Church or Unificationism, is a new religious movement whose members are called Unificationists and sometimes colloquially Moonies. That's after like the leader of the church. It was officially founded on the 1st of May 1954 under the name Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity. So you think that our church's name is long. I mean, look at that. In Seoul, South Korea, by Sun Myung Moon. See, so Moonies. A Korean Messiah claimant, also known for his business ventures and engagement in social and political issues. The beliefs of the Unification Church are based on Moon's book, Divine Principle, which differs from the teachings of Nicene Christianity and its view of Jesus, and its introduction of the concept of indemnity. The movement is well known for its unique quote unquote blessing or mass wedding ceremonies. So they call it blessing. The Unification Church has been controversial, with some early critics calling it a dangerous cult. It has also been controversial for its involvement in politics which include anti-communism and support for Korean reunification. The Unification Church and its members have founded, own, and support other related organizations, including business, educational, political, and other types of organizations. So it seems that they have influence. Members, they have approximately 3 million members, according to this. Now, the whole thing with these mass weddings, if you're curious why they do it, I'm going to read just a little bit about it. Okay, blessing ceremony. The Unification Church is well known for its mass wedding or wedding vow renewal ceremony. It is given to engaged or married couples. Through it, so it's kind of like, I guess, like a, well, I don't want to like really draw a parallel too much, but it's kind of like, spiritual marriage, or like how we have sealings. Not the same though, but through it, members believe the couple is removed from the lineage of sinful humanity and grafted into God's sinless lineage, according to their belief in a serpent seed interpretation of original sin in the fall of man. That Eve was sexually seduced by Satan, which has since contaminated the human bloodline. Just a little bit more about this, just because I find this interesting. Scholars have noted the blessing ceremony allows unification members to express their belief in an international, interracial family of God. In the words of the Reverend Moon, he once described the meaning of the marriage blessing, quote, "Then what is the ultimate reason why we need to do it? It is because our human ancestors fell. If our first ancestors had not fallen, it would not be necessary for us to receive the blessing. But we have to reverse the fallen process. We have no other way to return to God's realm of authority than through a course that restores the fall. That is why human beings until now have pursued religion, for this is the direction and purpose of human history." It goes on to say, it talked about how Moon, he was the one that would kind of like match the couples, and I think that basically continued until his death, and then even to this day, I believe. He passed away. I read somewhere there was kind of like a schism, so the church is kind of splintered a little bit, or fractured, however you want to think of it. But anyway, so they do a lot of like interracial marriages. The idea is to help bring the world together. Okay, and when I say interracial, you see here that there's like Asian couples, but like one will be from Korea, the other one will be from Japan, or whatever. But you can just see here, it's an interracial type thing to bring unification. So it's kind of weird that this would at all be associated with what happened to Shinzo Abe. And again, I'm not saying that there's anything more to this story, but there could be. There could be things that we don't see, understand, things going on behind the scenes. This whole thing with the Unification Church could just be some kind of to get you off the right track. I don't know. You'll just have to put in the comments what you think. What you think. Okay, so we got Sri Lanka. Okay, we have Shinzo Abe. And now we have Israel. Okay, so look at these dates, though. So this just happened. This one happened on Saturday. Shinzo Abe, I don't remember exactly, but that happened basically within the last week. Okay, so two things within the last week. And then we have Israel, where just to kind of summarize it, Benjamin Netanyahu had been in office for 12 years, and there were a lot of other political groups that wanted to get him out, but they didn't really have a way to do it on their own, just because his party has so many people in it. And so there was like a coalition of different political parties that came together in order to get him out of office. And in what I think is a kind of a weird deal, and I guess you can do this in Israel, you had first one prime minister, Naftali Bennett, who would be in charge of the first half of the government, the first term or whatever. Okay, and then after the halfway point, it would revert, or it would go to another guy, Lapid. Okay, so you had Bennett and Lapid. Bennett would go first for the first half. Lapid would go second. Okay, so what's interesting? Okay, before I read this probably should have been first. Let's look at Naftali Bennett. Okay, who is he? Let's just look at his political affiliation. Okay, so as of like right now, he's part of Yamina party. Yamina is an Israeli political alliance of right-wing parties that was originally configured as the New Right and the Union of Right-Wing Parties. Okay, so that's basically all you need to know, is that it's like a right-wing, that's his affiliation. Okay, he went first. Who is Lapid? Lapid comes from, and I think he actually started, if I remember right, because we've read this before, he's part of this, Yesh Atid. Yesh Atid is a liberal political party in Israel, founded by Yair Lapid in 2012. It seeks to represent what it considers the center of Israeli society, the secular middle class. It focuses primarily on civic, socioeconomic, and governance issues, including government reform and ending military draft exemptions for Haredis, which they don't believe in, I guess. They've had an exemption from having to be in the military, because there's a lot of like smaller countries where there's just not enough people, so it's mandatory that at a certain age you join the military and do your time. Okay, so what you have here, let's see, when did he assumed office? Oh, what do you know? July 1st. July 1st. So that was just like 11 days ago. Okay. Sri Lanka on Saturday. Abe within the last week. And then Lapid taking over within the last couple weeks. All these within just like a week or two within each other. Or within a week or two of each other. There's an article here. Now look at this. EXPOSÉ. This is Israel 365. I'm actually doing an interview with them, which will be up probably tomorrow or the next day. So look out for that. But look at this. EXPOSÉ. New Israeli Prime Minister Lapid to work toward two-state solution. Oh, and by the way, I should have said this. So what happened is they successfully got rid of Benjamin Netanyahu. They came to power, but the coalition didn't stay together. It fell apart. And so Naftali Bennett stepped down, and now Yair Lapid, until elections, which I think are going to be in like, oh gosh, I can't remember if it's like September or October. So he's going to have his turn for just a few months, and then whatever happens after that will determine who the new prime minister is. But for now, he's like the interim, or he's the caretaker prime minister. Okay, so he's talking now that he's in charge, he's talking about a two-state solution. On Sunday night, Hadshat Hamitav reported on the social media platform Telegram The newly appointed Israeli Prime Minister, Yair Lapid, has agreed to meetings to renew talks with the Palestinians to create a two-state solution. The report cited Can 11 News reporter Roy Case, who cited a report published by the Egyptian Presidential Office quoting the phone conversation between Lapid and the Egyptian President al-Sisi. Okay. Sorry, let me see if I can... Won't let me zoom in for some reason. Okay, as foreign minister under Bennett, okay, while Bennett was being the prime minister, he was acting as foreign minister until it was his turn to be prime minister. As foreign minister under Bennett, Lapid assured the Israeli public that while Bennett was prime minister, the two-state solution was off the table, and there would be no negotiations with the Palestinian Authority. 1 year ago, an address to the European Union described the two-state solution as unfeasible. Quote, "It is no secret that I support a two-state solution. Unfortunately, there is no current plan for this. However, there is one thing we all need to remember. If there is eventually a Palestinian state, it must be a peace-loving democracy," Lapid said at a meeting of the European Union Foreign Affairs Council, attended by 26 European Union foreign ministers. Lapid has opposed expanding or building Jewish communities, quote, "that will prevent the possibility of a future two-solution state." Because that's like one of the big controversies, right? Is that there's these settlements that keep going on to what's currently recognized as Palestinian land. Palestinians don't like it because they're like, well, if you keep doing this, then basically you're just going to annex more of our territory. So, and the way that it typically runs is that people that are more to the right support that. People that are more to the left do not support that. People on the left tend to not really support Israel as much, or their claims to the territory, or their desire to have Jerusalem as their capital, specifically including the eastern part of Jerusalem where the Temple Mount is. So that's kind of the divide. The right more will support more those kind of things, and the left is usually opposed to it. Okay, so let's see. A two-state solution would create an unprecedented Palestinian state inside Israel's borders. That is, there's certain phrases I'm just going to go ahead and skip over here. Inside Israel's borders, that would be without Jewish people, with its capital in Jerusalem. Even if the state is established with the Palestinian Authority in power, Hamas currently commands popular support and could take over as it did in Gaza. The recent revelation comes on the eve of President Biden's visit to the region. Now, this is interesting because just as you have Yair Lapid go into office at the same time that these other things are happening. Now, President Biden's visit has been planned for a while. I think even before, like way before even the government fell apart. But it just so happens that the government fell apart, Naftali Bennett has stepped down, and now Yair Lapid is going to be the one that greets Biden when he comes. And if you want to read more about Biden coming, here's this article. I'm not going to read this, but he's going there soon. Palestinians to protest Biden visit amid unfulfilled promises. Okay, going back here. Biden's administration had reestablished relations with the Palestinian Authority that were cut off during President Trump. Yair Lapid, head of the Yesh Atid party, was appointed the interim prime minister less than a month after Naftali Bennett's coalition dissolved, and will remain in the post until elections in November. So he's going to be in from now until November. His social agenda is anti-Haredi. If you don't know what Haredi is, it's basically within Israel. We did a video about this. There's like different groups. You have the Hiloni, which are Jews, but they're not religious. They're mostly just Jewish by culture, but they don't have religious beliefs really. You have, I can't remember all four of them. Anyway, Haredi would be the opposite of Haloni. They're like to the opposite side of the spectrum where they're very religious. They're Orthodox. It's what you would think of as Orthodox Jews. So it's saying here that Lapid, his social agenda is against the Orthodox Jews and anti-religious as he pushed for increased public transportation on Shabbat and instituting a civil marriage track in Israel. He criticized Netanyahu for alienating American Democrats and is suspicious of American evangelical support for Israel. Quote, the fact that the Israeli government completely identifies with the conservative evangelical faction of the Republican Party is dangerous, he was quoted as saying. So, and, I can kind of understand that a little bit because from what I can tell, when it comes to evangelicals, the reason why they're interested in Israel is because they're looking for prophecies to happen, and specifically the prophecy of the temple being rebuilt and then the Antichrist sitting in the temple, because the way that a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, the way that they read scriptures, they believe that the third temple has to be built, and then an Antichrist has to show up, and then the second coming will happen. So it doesn't, from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like they necessarily support Jews or the Jewish cause, wanting the Jews to have a independent nation. It's more, this might be unfair. I don't know. If you know more, put it in the comments. But I think that that's the evangelicals' main interest in when it comes to Israel and supporting Israel. So, okay, that's what I have highlighted in this article. So, again, you have someone over here in Sri Lanka that seems to be of a certain point of view politically. Someone in Japan, same type of point of view, just generically speaking. In Israel, you had this agreement where the first prime minister was of more of one point of view, and then he's being replaced by someone of another point of view. Okay, and then we move to Boris Johnson. Okay, Boris Johnson. Johnson, who announced his resignation on Thursday, so that was also within the last week. So Israel on the 1st, right? Gosh, I'm already forgetting. I think Yair Lapid began on the 1st. We had Sri Lanka on Saturday. Abe, I still don't remember exactly when Abe happened, but it was within like the last few days. And then Johnson on Monday, yesterday. Oh, no, sorry, Thursday. Thursday, the 7th. So also just a few days ago. That is a pretty tight grouping of events, of somewhat similar events. Similar in the sense that one type of person is being replaced or made to go away. All right. Now, Johnson, I think that he's kind of been viewed as like the British Trump. He was instrumental in Brexit. It says here, under Boris Johnson's majority government, the UK left the European Union on the 31st of January, 2020. So that was like a big story. So yeah, I'm not going to go too much into him, but just the fact is that liberals don't like him. And by the way, whenever you look up articles, as I was doing before this video, when you look up articles about this president in Sri Lanka or Boris Johnson, you're hard pressed to find any that are not just like vitriolic, like to the extreme, just bashing bashing on these people with like no mercy. So there you go with him. They're looking at replacing him. No, it's going to be someone within his own party, because I guess that's how it works out. He's stepping down, but they still have time in office. He's just being replaced by someone else. And according to this article from BBC, who will replace Boris Johnson, it looks like the favorite right now is Sunak. Okay. It's this guy right here. I'll show you a picture. Him. It was kind of hard to tell, but he's basically, he's in the same party, so he has the same beliefs. So Johnson isn't being replaced by someone from the other side of the spectrum. And it was kind of hard for me to kind of like really research too much against this person. I don't really know too much about him. He's his mother Usha was born in what later became Tanzania. And then I think his father Yashvir was born and raised in the colony and protectorate of Kenya, present-day Kenya. So his grandparents were born in Punjab province, British India. So that's his background, his family background. Just in case you're kind of wondering. I don't know if he would be the first like non-white British prime minister, which would be really interesting. Let's see, list of British prime ministers. So that would be historic if that happens. That's kind of beside the point of what we're talking about. Let's just take a quick look. I know it's probably a no-brainer, but yeah. Oh my gosh. Look at this. I didn't know that Boris Johnson was the 77th prime minister. That is an interesting number. Prime Minister Johnson, the 77th prime minister. Wow. We all know that 7 is important both in Judaism and Christianity. But whenever you have like double 7s, or you have, 7 plus 10, 7 times 10, things like that, it usually ups the significance of the number. Wow. Okay. So 77 has stepped down, and the next one will be 78. 78. If it's him. Well, we'll see who it is. I'll report on it when it happens. So anyway, sorry that this went so long. It's a lot of stuff to think about, though, isn't it? It's just, I feel like there's probably a connection. And it probably has to do with secret combinations, unfortunately. Why? Well, because it seems to all be going just one way when you look at it. One group of similar ideas is being ousted by another. In Japan, in Sri Lanka, in Israel, and in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom, Israel, and Japan are very important countries, politically speaking. Sri Lanka, not so much, but this is a game, and I'm not trying to trivialize it by saying it's a game, but it's a game of power, and it involves the entire world, and there's a lot of pieces on the board. So again, some of these things could be symbolic, or it could be a show of power of some sort, or who knows, there's probably things that we're not really privy to. But geez. And then we have this going on. right now with Russia and Ukraine. You know, this is happening this year as well. And again, it's mind blowing that we're having a land war with two major countries in Europe. Something not seen, or the likes have not been seen in Europe since World War II. I pulled this article up. We already looked at this. This is from 7 days ago. It's from the BBC, and it just shows you the map of Russian progress into the country, which they mostly have like the eastern portion of the country. Like they haven't gone too far inland, really, but you can kind of see it here on the screen. But yeah, so and here's like a better picture of it. So they if I was to calculate, it looks like they only have maybe about 10 to 15% of the country, Russia does, where they have military control. You know, this story isn't over yet. We're going to have to see what happens, but just things have been really weird politically for several years now. And I feel like these are all signs of the times. I feel like they're signs of the times that we should pay attention to. But being that they're signs of the times, it means that we're that much closer to the second coming, and these crazy things can just finally stop, because Christ will come and you're not going to have all these secret combinations and things going on. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.